Boa tarde. Eu não falo português muito bom, então vou falar em inglês. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Álvaro Echeverría, and I'm responsible for the startup business in Latin America. When we speak to customers and partners, they often ask us, how does Amazon innovate? What are the things that you do in order to innovate at the company? And so today, I'm going to share with you exactly how we're organized. I'm going to share with you how we go about innovation, and I'm going to share with you the things that have worked and the things that have not worked for us. There are many different ways to innovate. As you hear my presentation today, I am sure there will be other ways to innovate, but this is what's worked for us. So, everything starts with our mission. The mission statement for our company is to be the most customer-centric company in the world. It is a very broad statement in that it doesn't speak about a technology, it doesn't speak about a type of client, it doesn't speak about a geography in the world. But something that is extremely precise is that in everything that we do, we put the customer at the center of everything. So for us, innovation begins with a customer. We do not build services, we do not try to invent just to invent things. We start by getting to know our customers extremely close, understanding their limitations, understanding their challenges, understanding their pain points. And once we really understand what those are, then we start to work backwards from that to build experiences to delight them. So when you're innovating, you can innovate in many different ways. The reason we put the customers at the center of our innovation is because, like Jeff Bezos said in one of his letters, your customers will always be delightfully dissatisfied. Every time you do something and you're sharing it with your customers, they will come up with no ideas. They will come up with different ways to do them. And so as a result, you will have an infinite number of inspirations to work from. And many times, you start to innovate and you go to places where you never really thought you would go. So for example, Amazon has a very broad range of businesses. We've got our retail business, AWS, we have a device business, Amazon Studios, which we started a few years ago. And the number one question we get when we talk about the entire portfolio is, what is the common thread? How did you get into so many different businesses and how do you manage them? And for every business that you see on this slide, there was one common thread. We were trying to work extremely hard to improve the customer experience. For example, Amazon Go is a great example. Are you familiar with Amazon Go? Raise your hand if you know what Amazon Go is. Okay, a very brief description. This is a retail store where you can walk into the store, buy your products, and walk out. There are no cashiers, you don't have to take your credit card out. And so there was never a business plan to start a small business like that. But we were working on a pain point that had not been solved for years, which is you go into a store, you pick up your products, and then you want to leave. But for hundreds of years, you would have to get in line, wait for the cash register, and then leave. And so we were working to solve that problem. We knew it was a pain point for many customers, and as a result, we ended up with this concept. So we're always working to resolve an issue for our customers, and as a result, these business opportunities appeared. The other thing, when we talk about innovation, we try to take a long-term approach, and we focus on things that are durable. This is the flywheel for our retail business. And we have been focusing on three areas for at least 20 years. Price, selection, and convenience. We think that these three durable needs are just as relevant today, they were just as relevant 20 years ago, and they will be relevant 20 years from now. We do not see a moment where our customer might say, you know what, I would like higher prices, or I would like less selection. And so when you focus your innovation teams and your efforts in needs that are durable, you create a flywheel. So think about a flywheel as a big, heavy circle. When you start to move it, it's really hard to get it started, but then you get momentum and you spin it a little bit faster. Eventually, you generate momentum and you start to go a lot faster. The flywheel for our retail business starts with the customer experience. We focus maniacally on trying to delight our customers in every way possible. If we do that correctly, we're going to generate more traffic. If we generate more traffic into our site, we are going to attract more sellers, which generates more selection, which improves the customer experience. As we go through this, we gain economies of scale, and we can pass our cost reduction onto our customers. And it just becomes a flywheel. And so think about it, if you focus on these three things for 10, 15 years, imagine the depth, the expertise, and the momentum that you can create. So we're always looking and thinking about the long-term needs of our customers. If we think about AWS, the long-term needs are product breadth and depth, security, reliability. We can focus on those things for 10 years, and they will continue to be relevant. So we take a very long-term approach to innovation. Okay, so now that I've established that everything we do is based on the customer first, this is how we organize ourselves internally to innovate. Let's start with culture. How many here are early stage founders with maybe 2 or 3 people in their startup? Maybe 5 to 10 people in the startup? Okay, the founders must be out partying because they're not here today. So when we think about culture, when it's a very small team, it's very easy to think about it, and it's very easy to set the culture when the teams are small. But when you start to grow, and maybe you're hiring people in another city or in another country, think about how would you make sure that your next employee onboards and they have the same mindset and they have the same way about thinking about customers as you do. For us, we use our leadership principles. There are 16 leadership principles that we use every single day. The most important one for us is customer obsession, which means that we always start with a customer and we work backwards after we know exactly what they're trying to do. Now, the interesting thing about the LPs is that some of them are in contrast with each other. They don't have a formula, they don't tell you exactly what you need to do, but they force us to think differently, and they force us to look at problems in every different angle. For example, Dive Deep talks about getting all the data, doing investigation, but at the same time, we have bias for action. Bias for action talks about speed and making decisions quickly. Those two principles are in direct contrast with each other. And so we use them in order to clarify the way we think, in order to resolve issues, and to think what is the best thing we can do for our customers. Many of these principles are not an invention of AWS or of Amazon. I've seen similar concepts at other companies that I work with. But what's incredible about the way Amazon does it is how they apply it. We use them to promote people. We use them to hire people into our organization. Every time we're thinking about something for our customers, we're always basing it on the LPs. It is just not like a nice piece of paper you see in the lobby. We live our principles every single day, and we expect all of our employees to hold each other accountable, and to use them every single day. The other thing that's interesting, you will see on the top right, unless you know better ones. This is not set in stone. As our company has evolved, we have added principles, we have changed other principles around in order to be at the same pace as the change of the company. But this is the most important part of our culture. It is so embedded that I have found myself sometimes parenting my 16-year-old daughter using the LPs. We use them every single day. I'm teaching her about earned trust, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm now parenting my kids using the LPs. That is how fixed it is in everything we do. So since we're talking about innovation today, let's talk about invent and simplify. This is one of our LPs. And you can invent something brand new, something someone has never seen, and you can create great value for your customers. But also, you can maybe fix a tiny problem that is repeated millions of times during the year. And if you're able to simplify that, you're going to create great value for your customers and great value for your company. So it's not always about this big invention. Sometimes making small changes in problems that are constantly happen is extremely important. Now, there is a line here in orange that says, when you're inventing, you have to be willing to be misunderstood. People will not understand what you're trying to do. And we have had a couple of examples where we try something brand new and everybody looks at us and says, what are you doing? A great example is the Kindle. This is the first Kindle we launched in 2007. If you look at the design, it is not very sexy, to be honest with you, right? It looks a little bit big. The buttons are not very sophisticated. And so we got a lot of criticism when we launched. People were saying, your book business is not even profitable yet. You are going to cannibalize your sales with an e-reader. You are not the first company to market. There were other e-readers already in the market, so you are already late. But the mission of the Kindle team was extremely clear. It was any book ever published in any language in 60 seconds or less. And today, that is the mission of the Kindle team as well. So we were able to accept the criticism. We were made fun of. People did not think we should get into the devices business, but we knew we were solving an experience for our customers and that they wanted selection, they wanted availability, and so we kept at it. And so on the other side of the slide, you see a more modern version of our Kindle. It is very light, the power lasts a long time, it can get wet and nothing happens. We've got different sizes. But we were willing to be misunderstood because it was something completely different from us. The other big bet for Amazon was AWS. When we launched AWS, people were looking and saying, what do you know about infrastructure? You have a retail business. You do not even have an enterprise sales team. How are you going to do this? Why don't you focus on Amazon.com? Make that grow and forget about the infrastructure business. But we knew deep inside that we had solved some problems from Amazon.com that nobody else had been able to solve for us. And so we learned how to build scalable infrastructure in a secure way, and we thought there would be other customers out there that could benefit from it. But again, they told us the same thing. Jeff Bezos was on the cover of Newsweek saying, this is a really risky bet. Jeff, why don't you take care of your business first and then think about software at another time? And if you look fast forward today, AWS is an $85 billion run rate business. We have over 200 services. We have reduced price 129 times. And a lot of that was because we were willing to accept the criticism and to be misunderstood. So another great principle that I like is bias for action. And so this principle tells you that speed matters, especially when you're innovating. You cannot wait a long time. And so when we think about making decisions, we split decisions into two types. Decisions that you can reverse very easily, and decisions that you make that cannot be reversed. And so we have a concept that we use internally. And whenever we're facing a decision, we ask ourselves, is it a one-way door or is it a two-way door? A one-way door is a decision where you go in and you cannot come back. If you come back, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to cost you money. You might impact the customer experience. But one-way door decisions, we don't make them every day. For AWS, for example, a one-way door decision could be when we open our next region. Where are we going to put the next region in one country? For something like that, we take a lot of time. We investigate, we get all of the leaders. But most of our decisions are not one-way decisions. They are two-door decisions, which means a two-door decision is you go in, but you can come back very fast. There's no impact, there is no risk. And so we spend time training our employees on identifying, are you facing a one-way door decision or a two-way door decision? Most of the time, it's two ways. And so if it's a two-way decision, just go for it. Get about 70% of the data. You do not have to wait for everything, and just go. Because if it doesn't work, you can come back very quickly, and there is no impact, there is no risk. So this is a model that we use at Amazon every day. Is it a one-way door or two-way door? The next part is called mechanisms. And the mother of all mechanisms at Amazon is called working backwards. As you can imagine, it puts the customer at the center of the process, and we create three different documents: a press release, frequently asked questions, and we put some visuals together to help understand the idea. So let me walk you through what this is. Wow, the rock concert next door is really loud. I feel like dancing instead of talking about innovation, but anyway, I'll keep going. Can you guys still hear me okay? Wow. Right here it's hard, okay. So, the very first thing we do is, who is the customer? Ask yourselves, who is your customer? We had a meeting with a customer not long ago, and we had all of their executives sitting around a table. And we asked them to write in a piece of paper, who was our customer? 1 hour after we started, they could not agree. Everybody had a very different thought of who they were serving. And so think about it, if you're trying to create an experience to delight your customers and you don't even know who they are, it's extremely difficult. And this was a company that had been in business for about 10 years. And the top executive team could not agree. So you have to understand who's your customer, what are their pain points, so that you can create an experience to delight them. Now, everybody has ideas. Everybody wants to start something new. And so how does Amazon decide to pursue something, or just scratch it and say, you know, maybe this is not worth pursuing? We have 5 customer questions that we always ask ourselves before we innovate on anything. These questions can take you 5 minutes or 5 weeks. Until you're able to answer these questions, you are not ready to start innovating. If you cannot identify what is the biggest problem, if you do not have the certainty that what you are thinking is going to solve the issue from the customer perspective, you need to keep going. And so these 5 questions help us separate the idea that someone had in the morning for a shower, like, hey, let's do this. Okay, answer those 5 questions. If they are not ready, no, that's fine, thank you. If you're not ready to answer these questions, either your idea is not good enough, or you need to think about the next one. So once you have finished with these questions, this is when we start to create these 3 documents. The first document is the press release. And the way we think about the press release is you are going to write a 1-pager narrative like you were launching that product or service today. You're going to go into the future and you're going to describe to your customers, how does the experience look like? How does it work? How much does it cost? If it breaks, how do I fix it? What problem is it going to solve? This is in part why we call it working backwards, because we have not even started to develop the product and we are writing a press release in advance that explains the experience from the get-go. Then we got frequently asked questions, and we've got internal questions where you have all the financial questions. How much is this going to cost us? What is the forecast? What is the budget? How are we going to run this? And then we've got questions from the customer perspective. Anything you can think of that a customer would ask, we think about it before we even start to think about launching the product. And then the visuals are just to help the story and complement what we're thinking. So now that you've got this together, this is where the fun begins. You take your press release and you invite your colleagues, your stakeholders, your boss to criticize your document, to get feedback, to help you think about the document. When I did my first narrative, I finished it and I thought it was pretty good at first. I got massacred when I started to invite people. It looked like this. I got feedback like, you're not thinking big enough. You haven't talked to this group here who's thinking something like you. You're only thinking about Latin America. It was extremely painful. But putting your thoughts into a written document clarifies many things. Forcing you to think about all the questions before is also extremely important. And so eventually, after like 17 revisions, I presented my document and we got it approved and we launched a new initiative that didn't exist. But it was extremely painful. Now, another great thing, this is free. It doesn't cost anything. Amazon does not have an innovation group. Anybody in the company can innovate. It only takes your time, your passion to write your ideas and circulate it. Here's the other thing. Sometimes the best ideas come from employees who are introverts, who are not comfortable speaking up in meetings, who are not going to stand up and say, hey, I got a great idea. And so if all of the ideas that you are sourcing are being done by presentation, there is a bias for people who are good at speaking in public, but not necessarily the best ideas for your company. If you ask your teams to write ideas down, you have just invited everybody in your team to contribute to innovate. And so those people who are shy and do not like to get in front of people to speak, you tell them, go write your ideas. You will be surprised how much creativity you are going to get to your team. That's another benefit that I found amazing about this. Let's talk about architecture. And this is the way our systems are built today. When Amazon started, we started like many companies with a monolithic system. Everything was built into a single system. It was okay to get started. It got us off the ground pretty fast, but very quickly we realized we could not innovate. People were trying to not move anything because if you were to write code, you might break something in the monolith and nobody wanted to do that. And so back in 2000, we started to decouple our architecture and create microservices. So for example, the buy button in Amazon.com is a single service. There's a team who's responsible just for that button. They can innovate, they can try things, they can do whatever they want because they don't depend on this large monolith in order to innovate. And then we just connect our microservices through APIs. That sparks innovation. It's a lot faster to grow. It's very quick. And so the picture you see on the right, every little spot is an isolated service from our EC2 business. There's thousands of microservices connected through APIs. And so this just increased our speed, it increased our agility, and it made our move to the cloud extremely simple. Now, how to organize our teams, our people to innovate? First of all, we focus when we're hiring on what we call builders. We define builders as people who will come in, they will look at the customer experience and immediately want to improve it. People will say, you know, this is not good enough. We need to find a better way to serve our customers. And then we organize them into what we call 2 pizza teams. In Mexico, we sometimes say 20 taco teams, just to make it local. But the idea is that you want to create small, independent teams that have full autonomy over what they're building. They will build, and then they will support what they build. And this creates accountability, because if you're building a product or service, and then you're going to pass it on to someone else to support, you don't really care, because the problems are going to be for someone else. But if you're going to support your own product, you're going to build it in a way that it doesn't fail. So they are independent. Single-threaded leadership means that there's one leader that owns the entire project. And the question we often get is, what happens when a 2 pizza team grows and you're being very successful? We just cut them again and turn them into about 10 people. So it's like a small startup. We know that around 10 people in a team, it's the most efficient way to communicate. There's very little barriers, there's very little bureaucracy, and we get things done very quickly. Once you start to add 11, 12, or 13, it slows down dramatically. So Amazon all over the company has 2 pizza teams working on product, on services, on initiatives, and we look at something that we want to fix. We put the team together, we give them full autonomy, and off they go. Now, 2 pizza teams will give you a lot of speed and a lot of agility, but they will not guarantee success. This is a letter to shareholders from Jeff Bezos, where he's saying that failure and innovation are inseparable twins. Failure is not only to be expected if you're innovating. You have to embrace failure as part of your culture. I remember working for companies, and the feedback from my bosses was, Álvaro, just don't screw it up. I'm like, man, I'm not going to do anything, because if I screw it up, I'm going to get fired, right? The mentality of not screw it up prevents you from trying something new. Here, our founder is saying, we will fail fast, we will learn, but you need to expect failure from us. So let me share a couple of really big failures for us. Before Amazon.com existed, there was a concept called auctions. It was like an eBay type of site where we thought we could do a business out of this. We launched it twice and it didn't work. But we knew there was something there where we can build a business. There was another concept called Z-Shops, where Amazon would get a small fee, and in exchange we would do like a small site for our customers. That didn't work either. And so we were extremely stubborn on the vision, but very flexible on the details. Finally, we came up with Marketplace. And today, 60% of what we sell is through third-party sellers and small businesses. But it took us 2 or 3 iterations where it didn't work. And so the concept about failing is learning. We have a mechanism when something doesn't work, and we write a document where we try to understand what happened, why didn't it work. We get feedback from customers, from stakeholders, and we learn to do it over again. Our biggest failure is probably the Fire Phone. Raise your hand if you bought a Fire Phone. You bought a Fire Phone? Oh no, okay. I have met one person who bought a Fire Phone since I worked. It was one of the biggest failures that Amazon has ever had. About a year after we started, we cut the project and we were left with $170 million in Fire phones in inventory. And they were interviewing Jeff Bezos and said, hey, well, what do you think about your failure with the Fire phones? And Bezos responded, if you think that was a big failure, wait until you see the failures we're working on now. Because as you grow, you're going to have to think bigger, and you're probably going to fail bigger. But what this taught us was we had never worked with suppliers for devices. We brought in talent that helped us navigate this business. And many of the teams who worked on the Fire phone went on to work with Kindle, Alexa, and created amazing products. So they were not fired. They were not booted out of the company because we expected failure. We learned from it and used all of that to create a brand new business. So if people in your company fail, the expectation is that they need to learn. They need to document what happened so that you can iterate fast and move forward. So, in summary, these are the 4 ways we organize. And I've given you examples of how we do it. Now, I have a very special treat for you, and I have a special guest. Rodrigo is the CDO for Claro, and he's going to share today what he has done at Claro using some of the concepts that I just shared with you. So please join us.
Can you hear me? So I'll start sharing with you that we've been in this journey for many years, and Claro is already a big digital player. We have more downloads per month than Netflix has in Brazil. We have tens of millions of customers using our digital properties every day. So I'm just sharing that how we got here. We started with a couple of teams, or actually one team, a 2-pizza team. So to give you some. So we started down in 2013 with the small teams for website development, and we started growing this organization to achieve results, and the results were coming. And at some point, the organization had to face these crazy digital guys bringing results in a different way, with a different organization, kind of rebels in the company. And we had to start teaching the executives how to talk, how to use the language, and relate to the rest of the innovators there that were doing digital stuff without passing through the processes and the IT processes and the bureaucracies that we had. We were using cloud in a clandestine way. So at some point, we had to get all the executives together and start sharing that we needed to break the barriers. And by 2019, more or less, we found out that Amazon had a lot in common with us. And we asked them, and we partnered with Amazon to learn some of these principles and to reorganize the company, or the part of the digital company that we were growing, and how to behave this, or how to relate these teams with a core business. And we adopted the working backwards. I think the culture part is that we already had a lot of things in common: the one-way door, two-way doors, the bias for action. They were there. Sometimes they were forgotten in the company, but we pushed forward. And since 2020, we created what Alvaro called a business unit. We call it products, and I'll show you how we got here. Oh, come on. They are heavy. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry for the Portuguese, but this is real. So it's a real presentation. I decided not to customize it, just to show you that it's not a PowerPoint, it's just something that we use to tell our own guys what we're doing. So, and a very important part, you don't do this without a different way to work, without different mindsets and different people working differently. So those are pictures before the pandemic that we were using this. So we took the working backwards, we used the press release, the FAQ, the 6-pagers, to rethink the things or the products we were doing, and we decided to call or create these small companies, small enterprise inside the company. We call them digital products. And all those digital products, which is basically, they are formed like the two pizza teams. They start like two pizza teams. We were inspired by Spotify, for instance, as a product. So we call it a product and also a company. So the example here is what we call the e-care product. It started with a My Claro app and evolved to many properties. We have the leader here. If you want to talk to Albervan, he's the guy driving this. So the e-care organization now started like a small product, and we use all the working backwards tools and mechanisms. We started in 2021, end of 2020, with 4 products. We added another one, Claro Pay, in 2022. And now we are growing and expanding and doubling the size of this. In practices, this means we reorganize part of the company, right? So the products are independent organization inside Claro. They don't report to the president, to any director or functional areas. They report to a board that the president and some directors are there, and there's a leader, and the leader organizes this business in many tribes and squads. So the squads are 2 pizza teams. It's basically the same idea. They had to write the 6-pagers and they had to write the FAQ, and they are still doing this. My testimony, it's a very hard process to learn. It's painful, but it's worth it, because the clarity you get from, the clarity you get from doing this, it saves a lot of trouble. PowerPoints are easy to be misunderstood, but writing is hard. And reading and giving feedback is really difficult. That's a cultural change we're going through. So the idea, how we see this, Claro has a core that you all know, right? It's the Embratel business, it's the mobile business, the cable business, but also we are creating business that are decoupled from the core to innovate. Fast pace, the speed that Alvaro was telling you, it's really a differential. And we created this model of having the core more fixed and the outer ring, which is the speed enterprise. The idea is to have accountability, autonomy, to innovate faster. And a lot of those ideas we are using with partnering with startups. So the intention of the Beyond Claro is it's an invitation. It's an invitation for be on Claro, come to Claro, let's work together, let's build new products to new customers, let's understand those customers. We have a big reach in terms of clients. We have 70 million people, and we have most of 100% of all the big corporations in the country, and we can find the products and develop new solutions, new products to attend or to solve those issues and create and then seize the opportunities. So Beyond is an invitation to be on Claro, to go beyond Claro, to go beyond connectivity. We want to create business. We want to innovate in business models, in technology, and we're not doing this alone. She's telling me that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope this was useful to you. We've run out of time. Thank you. Bye-bye.